Greetings, gentle viewers!
And howdy!
We've returned from our cliffhanger! And presumably we're about to be told what the very last thing that we're supposed to do is. So, let's quit messing around and hurry up and get to the end of the game!
Speaking of messing around, instead of getting to the end of the game, we're the Bittersweet Gamers.
It's so true. I'm the Opinionator!
And it's also true that I'm We Squared. Now, where to begin?
Oh my god, Billy, no! I gave you Gaius! You don't get to do this again!
What? This is the only vampire voice I know!
Billy!
One stern rebuke for my co-host!
Billy, tell the nice viewers you're sorry and we'll never do it again.
I'm sorry. I'll never do it again. Please don't hit me anymore.
Very good. Before we move on, however, I think it's time that we take a look at Black Records 1.
Or at least however much can be looked at, with all the omittos.
The thing about these blocked out words, they have no relation to the amount of characters, at least in English,
right,
that the word would necessarily take. So that doesn't matter. So, in the days, years following the Great Collapse, Adjudicator Arner, whatever that title means, but that has to be what that word is.
Yeah.
Chose Heimdall as his base of operations from which he planned to rebuild the land of Erebos. Erebos is the Greek god of darkness. Before long, the city became a whatever of the region, and following that, its capital. The citizens, however, continued struggling? Surviving in the harsh post-collapse world. They wished for a strong, caring leader to see them through these harsh times. It was in Arner their wish was granted. After being recognized as an adjudicator by... I hit the wrong button. After being recognized as an adjudicator by both holy...
somethings,
he was declared choice. I believe that the way to look at that word would be orders. There's another reference to this later on. We know that there's two of them because it says by both holy blanks. And I think it would be orders. If Ouroboros really is not that old, in that Sharon was one of the people that it was gathering in its young days.
Right.
If that is the truth, which, I mean, I'd always assumed that Ouroboros was a much more ancient organization. If it's not, though, so be it. We have 3 candidates for these holy orders. The Gralsritter, what is currently called the Black Workshop, the Gnomes, whatever other name they might have had. And then the third would be Ouroboros.
Right.
Okay? Something that all 3 of those have in common, they each have knowledge and technology and, like, passed down wisdom from before the Great Collapse.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's holy orders, and it involves those 3.
Right.
This Arner dude, whatever his name was crowned as emperor and became the first of many rulers in the Arner bloodline. Upon his coronation, members of the Septian Judiciary were dispatched from Arteria, the holy see of the Septian Church, to endorse the new ruler. The people of Zemuria had lost their worship in the Oriole, the Septarian of space that managed civilization until its decline. However, the church provided them a new way of connecting with Aidios, faith. In addition, by recognizing the legitimacy of rulers across the continent, they strengthened the foundations of its recovering civilizations. Now, that Oriole could possibly be wrong, but I believe that that's correct.
That makes sense.
Now, what we get from this, and this is very important, what we get from this is that perhaps Aidios may not be the goddess of the sky, but Aidios most definitely exists. In Sky, when we talk to Ragnard, and there's another example of this as well, but I'll leave that alone for the moment. But in Sky, when we talk to Ragnard, like the divine beast, he was talking about Aidios as if he knew her personally, and talk of like conversations.
Right.
Like, there's no doubt that there's an Aidios. It's not some made-up thing or some evil goddess. After all, they were trying to recreate or recapture the security, the satisfaction, the glory of living under the blessings of the Oriole, perhaps.
Right. Okay.
A piece of technology that has some level of will and like
I don't want to think about that dang thing.
Absolute power. Now the Septarians were supposed to have been created by Adios. Well, I mean, maybe not. They certainly were created by the civilization that was here before, but that doesn't preclude any sort of divinity or something similar running around. Moving on, in the year 81 of the Septian calendar, which is 1200 years ago, I mean less than that, the whatever number or title emperor, whatever his name is, Arner, had a great cathedral built in Heimdall. The cathedral was to be a bastion of faith and would serve as a site to coronate or crown future emperors, but it also held a far more significant role. Unbeknownst to the public, an artificial septarian was created below the cathedral or palace or something.
Yeah.
A replica of the one that existed below Arteria. What that means is the See of the Septian Church, Arteria, has an artificial septarian deep within. Heimdall has an artificial septarian deep within. In the Crossbell games, we saw the artificial septarian of Mirage, and I'll tell you what, and that was able to be created by a family using techniques that they had had for a time as ancient as, like, the Black Workshop and the Gralsritter. And I will tell you what, I don't know how to describe Kia's powers outside of a goddess.
I see.
She has complete control over causality and can manipulate events in the past. Like,
That's pretty strong.
This is not ambiguous. Like, we are straight up told that she can do these things. She can control people's actions and does so automatically. So it makes perfect sense that Adios could even be a septarian, like the septarian of Mirage. Now and then Kia and perhaps these other two are artificial septarians.
Okay.
I had thought, based on playing Azure, I'd speculated that the Grandmaster of Ouroboros was the original septarian of Mirage, because you find some information in Azure that talks about the original septarian of Mirage and how it, seeing its powers as a harm to humanity, not a boon, gave up its own abilities voluntarily. And Kia also gives up her abilities. Right now, she's just an ordinary girl. She doesn't have that godlike power that she did before. So, Adios very well could be that original Septarian of Mirage and the Grandmaster of Ouroboros at the same time. I mean, I don't know. But these are some candidates that we have going around. What we can definitely say is whatever's below the Septarian Church and whatever connection that does or does not have to Adios, who most certainly exists, though the form of Adios is who knows what. Maybe Adios doesn't even exist anymore. Maybe the thing that Ragnar and the other character were talking about was entirely stuff in the past. Don't know. Who knows? But, okay, I sidetracked myself. The thing is, the Septian Church is always working to help civilization.
Right.
And is even extremely reluctant to have a political footprint of its own. And then our other candidates, Ouroboros is doing some kind of plotting.
Right.
And the Black Workshop is also doing its plotting. What are they doing to do anything to civilization, whereas the Church is helping civilization? Where are the Black Workshop members that have been in our team in each of the 3 games? Where are the Ouroboros members that have been in our team in each of the 3 games? Well, we got 2 of them, but...
I know the answer to that one.
Or 3 of them, rather, but, I mean, only one of them is main cast. But they're also all former members, with the exception of Sharon. We don't got no notes. But in Sky, and in Crossbell, and in Steel, we have Church members. So that just says something. Anyway, to finish this thing up, with the Church's increased presence, the desperate times following the Great Collapse came to an end. The people had lost their hope, will, goddess, but now had faith to sustain them in their search for light in the world I mentioned the faith because
Right.
of the line right here. However, X years later, I guess this would be a couple hundred since we were told that this happened in the year 81 of the calendar, so a
Yeah.
couple hundred years after
Yeah,
that, the darkness that gripped Erebonia would pull them down to the depths of ruin. One of the holy orders, as in the same word as that, both holy orders, one of the holy orders suddenly disappeared along with the something below the cathedral. It was that same day that the Dark Dragon's miasma laid waste to Heimdall. That should pretty much be it. As for whatever word is, I don't really know. My guess is standards, like banner, a symbol of something powerful. Doesn't necessarily have to be powerful itself, but maybe it does. Maybe the word is obvious and I just can't think of it.
The word might also not be relevant. It might just have been blocked out because.
I mean, we've gotten like however,
Yeah.
so
It seems pretty possible that what we're about to be told to do is to go beneath the cathedral and get the artificial septarian or interact with it in some way.
now we'd of course have to be told why we would be doing this,
Instead of going to rescue Ash and Altina.
but that could happen.
Now, where to begin? Grandmother, we don't know anything beyond this.
Don't leave out any details. Make sure you explain it fully before just leaving and disappearing like everybody else.
Yeah, I was about to say, how long do you think it's going to take before something happens to interrupt her?
I second that request. I don't know the details either.
Let's see. Roselia, perhaps we should take turns talking?
Very well, that will suffice.
I'm sure you've noticed by now, but there is a front and back to this empire. The spirit veins are directly affected by the turbulence of the government and war, and that causes cryptids and powerful monsters from other planes to stir. That explains it then. As the empire's territory spreads, so will they. So it was that. I was wondering about like the land of Erebonia expanding into Crossbell. That really was what happened.
Does that mean that Northumbria and Jirai are going to start dealing with this too?
Very possibly.
Ugh. The Pleroma Grass and Magic Knights. Where did they come from in the first place?
Yes, please tell us! Well, to begin, Pleroma grass is a mana grass from the higher planes. It once served as the eyes and ears of the Septarian of Mirage.
Oh?
Really? I feel as though we may have been talking about something related to this recently. Normally it's blue, but after the events in Crossbell, it all vanished. That is, until after Crossbell became part of the Empire, at which point it began reappearing in this new scarlet shade. So I was right. It really was like an invasion of the Empire.
Yeah! Like a spiritual invasion of the Empire, so to speak.
Well, that's what I meant. That means that the artificial Septarian of Mirage, Kia, was enough to cause all this Pleroma grass to appear to serve as her eyes and ears?
I guess?
And the Scarlet Shade didn't have anything to do with the Dark Dragon's miasma like we had surmised. It really was my initial idea of Erebonian grass, i.e. the sucker below the palace, the cathedral in Erebonia, whatever it is. It's like extensions of that.
The implications are rather chilling.
It changed color to match the infernal castle, perhaps?
There is undoubtedly a connection. As for the Magic Knights, you may have heard before, but they are golems from the Dark Ages. They were created by mages of the Empire to fight against the Divine Knights. During the Civil War, something caused them to stir once more, and they now appear in Crossbell via the Spirit Path.
No way!
That would also explain the increased incidents with cryptids recently. Huh. Sorry, we're just trying to make sure that we get all the information and absorb it, because it's amazing how distracting doing an LP is. Like, really, if you've never done one of these, it's amazing how easy it is to lose the thread. What about the society? the Phantasmal Blaze plan. They sought to use Crossbell's false phantasm to awaken the blaze in Erebonia, or so I've been told. Seriously?
So that's their plan.
Where did you hear that? Well, last night, I heard it from the Chancellor himself. Now, we knew that Kia was the artificial Septarian of Mirage. Perhaps the one under Erebonia is the artificial Septarian of Fire?
Makes sense. It would make sense.
He told me some other intriguing things, too, before wandering off before our conversation was anywhere close to done, causing Billy and Damon to nearly rage quit again. But I feel like he intentionally left out some of the more important details. I see. Who are Billy and Damon?
Yeah, I second that. I heard you talk to him, but...
It seems Ouroboros' work in Crossbell 2 years ago was to bring about some kind of change in Erebonia. Just so you know, Crossbell's Mirage Septarian was an artificially created fake. It was stronger than the original, but the Society had no interest in it. Well, that's news to me that it was stronger.
Good God!
Again, though, Ouroboros clearly had no interest in Kia or what the Croises were doing.
Yeah!
Were I to hazard a guess, their goal is to acquire the 2 treasures that originally existed here. The Septarians of Fire and Earth that once called the land of Erebos home. The Septarians of Fire and Earth? So Liberl had the Septarian of Space, and Crossbell had the Septarian of Mirage, but Erebonia had 2 Septarians?
Liberl is small, Crossbell is tiny, Erebonia is huge. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, so there's 3 in the Republic, or 2, and one of them's in Arteria?
Maybe the 2 giants that battled.
No, sure.
Yeah.
After all, something like that is undoubtedly the origin of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's easy to understand or grasp an idea or impression of what that means, but not necessarily the specifics.
Yeah.
Huh.
Hold on a second. Emma, if the witches are the descendants of the people who guarded the Septarian of Fire, then the gnomes are the descendants of the people who guarded the Septarian of Earth.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yes, then the Black Workshop and the gnomes are the same people. Oh, the descendants of those who guarded the Septarian of Earth. There are counterparts.
So they're the witches' counterparts and not Ouroboros' counterparts? Or the churches, rather?
Much like the Royal Auslis family of Liberl and the Croix family in Crossbell. In addition, you may be aware that each Septarian has its own holy beast assigned to watch over it.
That is correct. So that means there are 2 of these suckers here. Ragnard was the one in Liberl.
Okay.
Liberl had an ancient dragon.
God dang it!
Crossbell had a divine wolf. And as it had 2 Septarians, Erebonia had 2 holy beasts as well.
I had been trying to not reveal that one, but there you go.
I have just started playing Trails from Zero, so...
And there's only like 1 or 2 plot points that this game hasn't spoiled for Billy. And I tried to hold on to that one, but yes, there's the Divine Wolf.
However, after the Great Collapse, each of them vanished alongside the Septarian they were to oversee. That's the core of the issue.
The 2 Septarians, the 2 groups of people who worship them, and the 2 holy beasts. The Septarians and holy beasts disappeared, and the people changed their names. As in, to the witches, or the Hexen clan,
and the gnomes.
What on earth happened in Erebonia 1,200 years ago? And remember, the date is, 1206? We're talking...
near the beginning of the Septian calendar, huh?
Allow me to reveal to you the truth behind the land of Erebos.
The phone is gonna ring, Erebonian soldiers are gonna come in, a trap door is gonna open beneath her, and Reen is gonna face plant into her flat chest. Okay, very good. this story still relies on a modicum of speculation. Please keep that in mind. I can't believe it! This is real information!
In the beginning, this land housed 2 of the Septarian.
Last thing, and then I'll shut up, I promise. It's interesting how the holy beasts in Liberl and Crossbell did not disappear.
Yeah.
Because they didn't!
No!
The Arc Rouge, Septarian of fire and wielder of fierce power.
Arc Rouge.
The Lost Zem, Septarian of earth and bearer of unyielding endurance. Each assumed the form of a colossal
Right.
guardian
Yep.
and went about granting boons and performing miracles for its people.
Presumably, animism kind of comes from a vague cultural memory of this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the thing is, it's not like it isn't necessarily real because their legacy is still left. So if they were the Septarians themselves and now they are gone after clashing and have been replaced by the Great One, blah blah curse. Like I said, trying to make sure I keep a hold of all this.
For a few centuries, the land of Erebonia prospered. But eventually, its people began to vie for power and control.
Like people everywhere else in every time.
Always.
The Septarians had always granted their people's wishes. But now, their peoples each wished for the other's destruction.
I like how they look like super robots.
Oh yeah, this is totally Black Getter versus, I don't know, some kind of creaky Mazinger.
And so, the 2 colossi began fighting. Their battle ravaged the earth and split the sky, devastating the entire region. The humans tried to stop them, but it was in vain. The Septarians' fight continued 1,000 days, scorching the land black.
Good lord!
Huh. But now their peoples each wished for the other's destruction. What is the current political state in Erebonia?
Oh.
When the battle ended at long last, it was a tie. Exhausting their power in one final strike, the 2 Septarian were blown away, left as nothing but empty shells. Yet the tale did not end there.
The power expelled by each Septarian collided and became one.
The Septarian of lava!
Fire and earth combined to become the Great One. Fire and earth.
Do you think McBurn's channeling the power of the Septarian of fire? Is that what he's mixed with?
I have literally no idea! That wasn't what I was going to talk about at all.
That just popped into my head.
Why don't you grab the game case for Trails of Cold Steel, Billy?
I think I will.
So, I want you to take a look at the logo. And do you see anything about the logo that would be explained by any of the Septarians we're talking about?
Well, it does seem like it's sort of shrouded in fire.
Right. We even use that as a motif in our thumbnails. Because it's the obvious fire, but this isn't Trails of Cold Fire.
It's not Trails of Hot Steel either.
Fire and Earth, Billy. What's this game called? Look at that game logo. Did they combine to become steel?
Oh! Refined earth! When exposed to heat. Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, I'm just guessing, but I understand that the name, the original name is Sen no Kiseki, and Sen is like hard to explain. However, Cold Steel was, I don't remember if Falcom provided that translation or not, but the thing is the ultimate origin of the term Cold Steel and that being used for the title of this series comes in the name of the battle music from the first game, Glint of Cold Steel. So that means that this Cold Steel motif or steel has been around the entire series. And I mean, I just figured there wasn't nothing to it. The gnomes made the Divine Knights, right? So I had kind of always thought that the Divine Knights had something to do with a Septarian since they weren't a Septarian themselves.
Like maybe they were powered by a Septarian like the Ions are supposed to be?
Something like that, maybe. At least I had sort of thought that, maybe that's the case. Maybe there's a flying hippopotamus that breathes fire. Like it was just like, ooh, what if this? What if that? But this just is reminding me of that. Okay, I'll shut up.
resulting in the creation of an entirely new entity.
The Great Power.
The Great One, the Septarian of Steel.
Oh yeah! You called it!
It was an existence created from the union of fire and earth. It was beyond anything else in this realm.
And that's what happens when you stare at the logo on your game box for 20 minutes while you're on the pot and don't have anything else to do.
Ew. Why'd you bring the game case into the bathroom? No, don't tell me. I don't want to know.
It was the ultimate source of power. Though things seemed fine at first, the survivors of the war soon realized the eternal conflict within it. They knew this conflict would cause it to grow ever more unstable, and that it was not something that could be handled by mankind.
With the Holy Beast's assistance, the kins of fire and earth joined together to see the Great One sealed away. However, each of their attempts ended in failure. Left with no other options, they resorted to their final plan. The Great One would remain whole in the higher plane, yet its physical incarnation in this world split into numerous shards.
I suppose that would be the Divine Knights then, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It was this final gambit that saw disaster averted.
Indeed. Their combined efforts bore fruit. The kin of Earth created 7 vessels, while the kin of Fire split the Great One's power and infused each vessel with a part of it.
7 vessels.
Yeah, the 7 Divine Knights.
Ashen, Azure, Auric, Palatinate, Vermilion, Argent?
I think that sounds right. I don't fully remember, though.
What was the last one?
7 dolls in the form of knights, each bearing the Great One's power, the Divine Knights.
Wow.
That is beyond fathomable. I was told about this in bits and pieces, but... So all that happened 1,200 years ago? That wasn't a fairy tale, right? At the very least, something similar happened. So what happened after that?
And why did Valimar and the other Divine Knights start fighting? So that makes sense. Whatever it has to do with the Phantasmal Blaze plan or not, Vita did want 2 of these Divine Knights to start fighting. I guess it's like some type of enormous power is let out when Septarians are battling, kind of thing. Because even Ouroboros and the Ions, like they were trying to clash them, you know? And there was what Rufus said about reaching the core.
Yeah.
And accessing the power.
It could be that if an Awakener gets strong enough, maybe they can fully awaken the Septarian of Steel in that night.
That sounds like a horrible idea.
I agree!
And why did Valimar and the other Divine Knights start fighting?
This is as far as the story that was passed down goes.
Even an 800-year-old vampire doesn't know any more than this, eh?
It was kind of before her time, wasn't it? Which is saying something.
Well, no, she still would have been,
Well, if it happened 1,200 years ago and she's only 800, yeah.
So the kin of fire became the Hexen clan, and the kin of earth became the gnomes. They split the unstable ultimate power into 7. Then, both sides decided to watch over the reconstruction after the Great Collapse.
So then what was that both holy blank in the Black Records? And one of the holy blank absconded with the artificial Septarian. Or the something...
Yeah, I don't know.
Below the cathedral. Huh. Oh, well, I guess, like, both kin, perhaps?
Maybe. Oh, and by the way, many people from each kinship have since abandoned their roles. They joined together, started accepting people from the surrounding area, and created the foundation of what became Erebonia.
Roselia herself is one of those people. She was part of Dreikel's little band. This is around the same time the Septian Church was spreading across Erebonia. 300 years passed, and the Arner family established the city of Heimdall. That's when the disaster of the Dark Dragon occurred. In the 400s, something like that?
900 years ago, Heimdall.
Or the 300s, apparently.
We're getting so much exposition, I'm scared.
Was a small city of only about 50,000 people. However, it was one of the burgeoning centers of culture for the region. The Septian Church had finished construction on the Heimdall Cathedral, and there were plans to develop the city even further. But it was then the Dark Dragon appeared, blanketing Heimdall in miasma and transforming it into a city of the dead. Emperor Astorius chose to lead his people south and made Sainart the new capital of Erebonia.
In helping Emperor Astorius deal with this crisis, the Hexen clan and gnomes each suffered substantial losses. The Hexen clan lost its elder, and the gnomes their holy beast.
So the holy beast of the Hexen clan may still be around.
Yeah.
And so ended their alliance. The final time they spoke would be a century later. It was when Emperor Hector awakened the Vermilion Knight to reclaim Heimdall from the Dark Dragon. He did so at the urging of the chief of the gnomes and the new elder of the Hexen clan, myself.
There was just a nasty surprise at the end.
Yeah.
And Roselia wasn't going to let that one happen again.
However, the Emperor fell to the Dark Dragon's miasma, and the Vermilion Knight to its curse. The Emperor's son had the chief of the gnomes and myself seal the cursed knight deep below the Imperial Palace. That would be the last act our two clans performed together. I do not know why, but the gnomes cut off contact with our clan and hid themselves away. In the 800 years that followed, whenever war struck Erebonia, a divine knight would enter the stage, demonstrate its might, then vanish. I was certain the gnomes were involved, yet all we could do was guide awakeners on the proper course.
Yep.
This unending pattern reached its most fevered peak 250 years ago during the War of the Lions.
Where we had the Ashen, the Auric, and the Vermilion, or what was left of the Vermilion.
Yeah.
The false Emperor Orthros unearthed the cursed Vermilion Knight, and a mercenary under Prince Lucius' employ awakened the Palatinate Knight. Prince Drycles found the Ashen Knight,
Okay.
and Leanne the Argent Knight.
So she had the silver, not the gold.
The four awakened at once, made for a grand war indeed.
So that's how things connect. There are so many parts to this story I want to question, but... So Emma's grandma was around during the War of the Lions?
She's already said she's 800 years old. A good witch. I've read about them in fairy tales.
Bad witches get houses dropped on them.
As the princess guide, I accompanied the Drycles camp. I remember those days. I used to be quite the beauty. All I mean to say is that the art depictions of me are not inaccurate.
That's important to know.
Ahem. As stated earlier, the elder of the witches isn't a normal human.
So you've been watching over the clan after becoming an immortal being.
Yes. However, I only came into existence 800 years ago. My predecessor perished soon afterwards, and I do not have many memories from before that point. So naturally, there are things that I still do not know, but I'm all-knowing anyway,
But there are things that you do know about, such as how you said the maiden Leanne was the awakener of the Argent Knight. Laura, go get it! Go get it! Well, no, Sandlot still has it. And whether or not she is Ouroboros' Steel Maiden.
That's true. You could confirm so many things. Oh, it's her. Of that much I'm certain. She was the daughter of a count who met the Wandering Prince and later challenged the apocalypse, only to lose her life. However, before that happened, it was I who guided Leanne to becoming the Argent Awakener. But Leanne knew her powers were too great, so she kept them hidden away. It was only during her battle with the apocalypse that she unleashed her full might. In the end, however, she was fatally injured and passed away after the war.
If she would have gotten some more practice in with it, it might not have turned out so badly.
Then, half a year later, I witnessed her revival,
Go on.
along with your ancestor, Arsaid, second in command of the Eisenritter.
So, Arsaid also returned from the dead?
That or she witnessed it with him. But it seems to be she's saying that. Yeah, see? I
Yeah.
witnessed her revival, yeah.
Okay.
So that's why. Were you the one who revived them, grandmother?
No, they did both come back to life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know too.
After Leanne passed, I thought it strange how her body did not rot. So I took her body back to the village, and half a year later, she simply woke up. I assumed she had become an immortal, though I could not say when or how. Leanne realized what was happening to her. So she left Erebonia to walk the earth without even telling her love, Drykos. She left Legram to Arsaid, her right-hand man. I occasionally met with her whenever she came around, but the last time was 20 years ago. That's when she met Ouroboros' grandmaster, who brought her into the fold.
So it has only been that long. That matches with what Sharon said about the age of Ouroboros as well. Thank you for sharing this. There are some things that can't be overlooked. Yeah, we've seen too many incredible things over the last few months.
So the boss and Crow were both. As I said earlier, we have no idea what specifically happened. I think the key is the Divine Knight. Jaeger King was not an Awakener when he was alive.
The Divine Knight is what we assumed
That
was...
seems to be the commonality.
On the other hand, Drykos was an Awakener, but he did not become immortal. He has remained dead.
Okay, so that's some confirmation on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Instructor Reen isn't immortal, is he?
Ah! Right, he's still been growing since graduating, but that may not have anything to do with it. Yeah, I may have some weird powers, but I've definitely aged, unless this is some sort of convenient power that lets you grow into adulthood and then halts your aging.
Man, that's convenient.
Is there a common reason? I believe there are only two people who know the truth. The current Chancellor, Gileath Osborne, and the Chief of the Gnomes, Black Alberic.
Black, that's what it is. We were wondering if it was white. I know I thought that at one point.
So that's the leader of the Black Workshop. Yes, though I do not believe he is an immortal like me.
That seems to be the case, yes.
The leadership of the gnomes is somehow passed down from one to the next, in order for them to achieve their goal of bringing about the Great Twilight.
Right. The Great Twilight? This is the first I've heard of it because we weren't witness to the cutscenes with other characters that we aren't around. But...
Is that the fairy tale of the end that Vito was talking about? Yes, 800 years ago, as we were going our separate ways, this is what the Chief of the Gnomes told the prince and me. It was as if he was foretelling a future where everything ends.
So it is not exactly foreknowledge, but
A prediction?
A prophecy.
Wait, that's two!
It's much too similar to the direction the Empire is heading. Let me add to this. The reason Barkhorn and I were in Erebonia was because we discovered an anomaly. The spirit veins were being distorted all over the continent, and the source seemed to emanate from the Empire. It was like a ripple effect. The incidents in Liberl and Crossbell, as well as the civil war in Erebonia, only served to further increase the distortions. We were thinking that this had come from the clash of the two Septarians, but that's apparently not quite the case. But it is true that the spirit veins themselves have this.
Yes.
They continued to get larger after Crossbell and Northumbria were folded into the Empire, and larger again when the Cryptids and Magic Knights of Erebonia appeared in Crossbell. On the other hand, Pleroma grass, which is native to Crossbell, started blooming in the Empire. If the Great Twilight really is about to happen, then all of this seems to be an omen of things to come.
Who is this Alberic person?
He uses a masked man as his agent and hired the Jaeger King, who is supposed to be dead.
Are there other gnomes out there? Well, your dear rabbit friends may technically count, but
Yeah, I mean, they're not.
They're not, no.
besides the masked man, their leader seems to have at least one other acting agent whom some of you might be familiar with.
Copper Georg.
I cannot say who this person may be, but it would seem they are a talented craftsman at any rate. Oh, and before you jump to conclusions, I am not speaking of that little brat Schmidt. It would seem the person I speak of possesses a different kind of genius than he does.
Uh-huh. A talented craftsman whose name is Genome. Uh-oh.
That's putting some unpleasant ideas in my head.
We haven't seen him in a long time. In any event, Alberic and the Chancellor are probably connected, as we have surmised. And it's unlikely to be through the Intelligence Division or his children.
Well, except for the two that are straight from the workshop.
Well, that's not what the connection
Oh,
is.
okay.
That's not what it's through.
Right.
Milliam and Altina were provided by the Black Workshop because of their relationship.
Okay.
The relationship isn't through the two that were provided. With the incidents of last night, things may have already been put into motion.
Why do you say that?
Last night, we finally decoded the Black Records that you found the other day.
Awesome!
Oh, the Black Records are a collection of a particular type of an artifact, sometimes found in Erebonia. I was actually exchanging information about them with Reen. I have been for several years. Ha 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 ha! Fooled you!
Really?
When did that happen? Right before all of you graduated. He revealed his true identity to me in a New Game Plus of Cold Steel 2. He told me not to tell anyone. I hope you don't hold it against me.
Father Thomas. Sheesh, you probably took advantage of Reen's sense of responsibility, didn't you?
Well, it worked. Well, I can't deny it. In any event, this is what the updated Black Record said.
When the sacrifice is made and the ancient blood flows, the path to the Grawl of Erebos shall open.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
The Grawl of Erebos? The Holy Grail? Is this Fate Stay Night now?
Speaking of comparisons to Persona 5,
So, you sacrifice ancient blood. It's not just any old sacrifice, it has to be some ancient blood. Like the Arner bloodline, which
Maybe.
has been highlighted in the story and in Black Records 1. Who was just sacrificed?
Oh no, the Emperor.
That may be that sacrifice and that ancient blood flowing, eh? Thus the path to the Grail of Darkness will open?
When the tainted holy beast is pierced by the blade of World's End,
Oh.
and its blood fills the Grawl, the great twilight shall fall upon the land.
Oh no.
Well, I guess we found our missing holy beast then.
When we defeated Zoro Agruga. Oh, that's bad.
What? That's...
Timing is too perfect. It's as if the prophecies were written about our current situation.
If the ancient blood is referring to the Emperor,
Then is the sacrifice referring to Ash?
kill the Vile One? Maybe it is. He did have that dark miasma about him.
What about the Grawl and the blade?
The Grawl is probably related to the Septian Church. And the tainted holy beast.
Father Thomas, could that be?
Yes, as was stated earlier, Gaius. There is a sacred place beneath this cathedral, as we said at the beginning of the episode. The primal ground, A facility that was designed to play a major role after the Great Collapse. 900 years ago, when Heimdall was shrouded in darkness, it retreated beneath here and disappeared. Disappeared?
I heard about such a facility in the Burl. Holy beasts! And the Black Records, the holy thing we didn't understand? 2 of them, holy beasts!
That must be it. Or that could be it.
Yeah.
As for this facility in Liberl, that was the final dungeon there underneath Grancel Palace, which was a pre-collapse area. We called them archaisms, all the robots that were in there, but really archaism isn't quite the right term.
Yes, their actual name is Overmuppet.
No, I'm not talking about that! So, a pre-collapse facility, or at least a facility made with mostly pre-collapse technology. Yes, there is one beneath the Grancel Cathedral in Liberl, too. However, when Heimdall was retaken, the space beneath the cathedral was buried by rock. But what if it didn't disappear and simply transferred somewhere else instead? So it still exists?
The holy beast mentioned in the prophecy is likely the holy beast of Earth. As I said before, it disappeared after the disaster 900 years ago. It is only speculation, but I believe the dark dragon you faced the other day was merely a servant of the true holy beast.
Wait a minute.
Are you saying that the dark dragon wasn't the cause of everything? Though it was indeed a powerful cryptid, it was not something the witches and gnomes could not take care of together.
It was pretty weak.
If the holy beast gave birth to the dark dragon and is still alive somewhere, where else could it be but the primal ground? All of the conditions set forth in the prophecy are lining up. This has got to be a joke.
Regarding this Blade of World's End that defeats the holy beast, in other scriptures it is called the Originator Zero. I'm speculating that it's a special weapon crafted by the Black Workshop. What in the world?
At the very least, it probably isn't anything like what the boss uses. Do you think it's made of Zemurian ore, like the weapons used by Divine Knights?
That would make sense, or black Zemurian ore, or
Yeah.
some such. That would seem most likely. Yes?
Muse?
Is something the matter?
Do you have something to share with the class?
Oh?
You realize something?
Right now, we need any straw we can grasp at.
If even Thomas is saying that, then we definitely have a real information deficit.
Anything at all could help, no matter how small.
Then again, in terms of the events in Crossbell, it's not like the Gralsritter had really any idea of what was going on there either.
Yes, you're right. That term. Originator Zero.
Remember that Muse is a descendant of Prince Orthros.
Oh yeah.
Could that be OZ, perhaps?
Ah.
No, Oz.
I will beat you to death.
Two scornful rebukes from my co-host.
That's what the Black Workshop called Millium and Altina.
But what on earth could that weapon be about them? What is it that they have?
Combat shells.
Why would a combat shell be able to destroy?
I'm not sure, but it's something they both have. Hold on. Clown Soleus was able to interface with Goliath.
But that's not a Blade of World's End that defeats a holy beast greater than Zoroagraga, you understand?
Oh, that's true.
They're model numbers. OZ.
It's true that Alberic's spying on Altina and the Goliath was like, okay, she's successfully interfaced with it. But what does that mean? What does that require? And what's special about it that it's essentially our Lance of Longinus, or, you know, the ultimate weapon that can fell the ultimate thing?
Maybe Altina and Millium were just prototypes of the system. Now that they've proven that it can interface with the Goliath, maybe now they can actually create one that can have a stronger purpose.
That would be plausible, except it's a little late, isn't it? Don't they have to have it right now? Because isn't everything lining up for right now?
Well, it's possible they already do? I don't know. Could
Well,
be
then
something that they just introduced at the very end.
Well, then that just defeats entirely the argument you made, is what I'm saying.
Three scornful rebukes from my co-host.
Oh, what are you talking about? So you finally made it.
And here's Vita at long last.
That voice.
Vita! Ah, so the prodigal granddaughter returns.
Misty, Vita!
I heard you had been acting on your own. Nice to see you again, grandmother. Emma, Celine, and Class 7, too.
We have no idea if you're our enemy or not. We suspect not. However, you are a dumb poop face for not just talking to us before now.
And thank you for mediating, Mr. Lysander.
Oh, don't even mention it. It always breaks my heart to see a family torn apart so.
Vita! Why? You really don't plan on ever coming back, do you?
That's correct. As I said before, my allegiance will forever lie with the Grandmaster.
That appears to be the sort of loyalty she inspires.
I can't return to you and grandmother. I can never go back to the way I used to be. Just like the Steel Maiden.
Seriously, who even is this Grandmaster person?
That is the $5 million question, Celine.
I have no clue. But it is clear she is quite taken with them.
Everyone who seems to have met her personally is like that.
So do tell, Vita. If you have not decided to return to us, why show yourself now? Has Ouroboros finally decided upon its course of action?
Yes. After our experiments with the 3 ions.
Why are you talking like you're back in the good graces of them? Did something happen?
Well, she's surely not back in the good graces of them, but she still knows the information and is still counted as a member.
Yeah, but okay.
The 6 other Anguis came to a unanimous decision. They decided to ignore my warning. They will work with the Chancellor and the Gnomes to bring about the Great Twilight, completing the Phantasmal Blaze Plan.
So Vita is the only person who was, well, maybe not doing the original intent of it after all.
So that's how it is. The reason Ouroboros was so quiet the past month wasn't because they left Erebonia.
It was to carry out their plan and determine whether they should work alongside enemies and traitors.
How can that be? If that were the case, it means...
They're all our enemies?
Yeah, pretty much. They had seemed to be enemies. The Black Workshop had been enemies of Ouroboros before, quite obviously, but if what Vita is saying is true, which I assume it is, then that means that the Black Workshop agents fought Ouroboros after Ouroboros had voted to work with them.
Yeah.
Complicated relationship. Or maybe what they did wasn't to work against Ouroboros, but to provide that fight the Ion to help complete the experiment.
What complicated organizational relationships in my Trails game?
Never!
Is this? It's not the cathedral's bell.
Oh no!
I think I recognize it from Crossbell.
Oh no!
You do?
Yeah, I'm sure of it. I remember hearing it right before the incidents in Crossbell, when we were still independent. Oh! The one from the museum!
And there's the Stargazer's Tower music.
The bell from Stargazer's Tower?
But the sound's coming from a different direction than the museum.
That's because it's not in the museum. You know that.
The Phantasmal Blaze Plan. What a fitting name. I wonder how much of this she foresaw.
That is quite enough mumbling to yourself. If you know what is going on, show us!
That's why you're here, right?
It'll be a bit tough without Grianos. I'll need your help, Grandmother. Emma, Celine, you too.
Yes!
Ugh, I'm not your slave.
The Imperial Villa.
Oh.
We always seem to come back there. Campanella and the Stall Ritter. The remains of the Vermilion Knight. And Gareth and Zephyr, Red Constellation and Zephyr, trying to revive the sucker.
Or use it as a component in the ritual or something. There's Cedric Millium?
Well, she's an Ironblood.
Okay.
I can't believe that all of them are really still here at this point.
Well, they don't seem especially happy to be here.
That's true. But the way they were talking before, it's like they ended up not even having the guts to do something about it.
They might be here just in case.
They can't do anything here. Look at all the ridiculous powerful people there.
Now then, let us say we celebrate the continuation of the Phantasmal Blaze plan by ringing in the Great Twilight. I, Enforcer number 0, the Fool, shall play the opening note.
And well below the villa is the meeting place of Ouroboros?
What the?
A room from what we saw in Sky Third?
Yeah! I guess the tainted holy beast.
The one of fire. Right? It was
Earth.
It was Earth. Fires was destroyed?
Yes. Wait. No, this has to be fire, because it was the gnome's holy beast that got destroyed, so this is fire, yeah.
Hits the blaze.
Ooh!
Now that can't be good.
God, this music is intimidating.
Yep, and there's Sharon, who indeed is still here to fulfill her role. What the hell is that?
The fire egg!
Is it like the core of the corruption of the spirit veins, or the core of the veins themselves?
Check that out!
Huh. Sure is something.
Well, how about that?
So, the beginning of the end, is it?
Deja vu.
The Grawl of Erebos.
That's right.
Just as the Black Records foretold.
The crypt where the great power will be reborn.
Huh. Reen. Uses.
Couldn't have guessed this is how my day would turn out when I woke up this morning.
Let us begin. It is time. Chief of the Gnomes and head of the workshop, show me the way, Black Alberic.
Of the Black Demise?
Oh my!
As you wish, my lord.
And what is even going to happen with this great twilight? And why do they want it to happen? You realize there is literally no way we can storm all through these people.
Oh God, no! Don't even joke!
There isn't any place on Earth that can get rid of this many folks. Of this caliber of strength.
And then the game ends.
Not without a proper last boss. Well, we can't stop that.
I believe it has officially hit the fan now.
Rufus. Millium.
Well, forgive me for not showing much concern for Rufus. Do they plan on destroying it?
They have to be along to see if they can do something when the time is right.
What's the purpose? No. I mean, what's the purpose of Originator Zero? To destroy...
To destroy, yeah.
The Holy Beast.
Yeah. Oh.
So it's like they're reviving it and then destroying it or something. Well, reviving the great power, the Septarian of Steel, and destroying the Holy Beast? That's why Millium and Altina have to be there. Look, I get that they're going to be utterly strong-armed, but the thing that disappoints the heck out of me is Claire and Lecter. Sharon never said she revoked Ouroboros, and so this is not much of a surprise. But Claire, she should be ashamed of herself. Well, then again, it's not like she could stop it, and perhaps by bearing witness she might be able to do something at a different time, but still.
Was that Allie?
Yes. But why?
Boss, Zeno, and Leo.
Azure Siegfried.
And that guy in the lab coat. Isn't that...
Ah, yeah.
The Blazing Demon and the Fool were there as well.
So that's the maiden.
Why? We just spoke this morning and...
I'm just not surprised. But then there's this.
Yup!
What's going on?
Yeah.
Yep!
Lisa.
That man's name was Lumen or something like that, right? His hair looked different.
Franz Lumen, the first disciple of G. Schmidt, and the deceased husband of the Reinford Group's chairman.
Well, Elisa makes that perfectly clear when they first meet.
Right.
And yeah.
Also known as Franz Reinford.
Ah, so he has been lurking in the shadows these past 20 years.
Yes. Perhaps for the sake of working with the Chancellor to engineer this very moment.
Elisa.
Yeah.
Snap out of it! Now's not the time!
Good job.
As a bracer, I can't just sit here and let them pull off whatever that Twilight crap is they're planning.
And we're about to get into a very hard series of battles, so let's buckle down.
How about all of you?
She's right. We can't stop here.
You can be as confused and frustrated and feel as betrayed as you want, but that doesn't change what we have to do. In an ideal world, the best circumstance from this point would be to beat the appropriate people up and then wring the answers out of them later. But just because it turns out your dad is the goddamn leader of the gnomes doesn't mean that you should consider going along with him.
Right?
We gathered together to do whatever we could to help. Our goal remains unchanged.
Exactly.
Yep, true.
Elisa, let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to belittle her feelings, but if she stays in shock, nothing will change. She can get the answers she wants.
Yeah, she should look at it like that.
And later on...
And this should give her some closure, too.
Yeah, and later on, she can be as upset as she wants, freak out as much as she wants, cry as much as she wants. All that is fine. Now is not the time for that.
Well, Vita, what will you do now?
Join the party?
What have you been doing, Vita?
Well, I'd like to charge in there alongside the rest of you, mostly out of spite. Unfortunately, I suspect things won't be quite that easy.
There is literally nothing easy about any of this. Even if all of us here all went in, we would be woefully outgunned.
What do you...
Something's...
There's a turbulent swirl in the mana.
What's gonna happen now?
Was that?
I believe so.
Sir Lysander, Sir Gaius, cryptids and magic knights have appeared all over the city.
Oh, God.
No.
This is much worse than when it happened in Crossbell. At least in Crossbell, all the fiends wandering around the city
We're protecting people?
They were protecting the citizens of Crossbell. Well, they wouldn't have even done that if it weren't for Dieter Croix. Nobody else gave a shit about any of them, but he at least actually loved Crossbell. Doesn't excuse anything he did. But,
right.
Well, that's been a lot to take in the biggest Trails exposition dump of all time.
Better to end here than in the middle of a cutscene, right?
Guess we have done that a few times in a row, huh?
One disdainful rebuke from the audience.